So in the event that a Mexican spouse dies and the surviving spouse is a foreigner and there's no will, what are the claim rights? Can the family have claims to the assets or full or partial over the spouses?
Well, let me see if I understood this right, because I did write one article a while ago about concubinage, concubines. That's something else. But if a person dies in Mexico and dies intestate, which is without a will, the family will have to get an attorney and file in court for intestate. It's not probate, it's intestate, because there was no will. And then it's a complicated, time-consuming process, and it's also expensive because of legal fees, because there are certain stages. One is to actually report to a court that someone died and left the state. And what the court has to do is to actually control the assets to make sure that they're not mishandled by someone without having a right to do that. Even if there's someone in possession, the state has to do what's right. And then the person who filed that report with the state doesn't have to be even a relative. I'm the neighbor. I noticed that my neighbor died, and I know that the property is vacant, so I'm just letting the judge know that this person died, so that they do whatever they have to do in order to put that into what they call that conservatorship or something like that. So to name a custodian by the state to make sure that property is not taken for someone's advantage without having a right to it. But there's stages in which, okay, if I'm the spouse and the person died, here's my the death certificate, here's my marriage certificate, or here's my birth certificate. I'm the son of the deceased. And then you go through stages until the family eventually is able to name a executor, which we call albacea. And then there's another stage where you have to appraise the state in order to determine its value and to determine if there's any debt incurred, and there's a need to adjudicate property if there's no debt and it's transferable to the family, and it goes on and on and on. There's several stages or phases of it. How expensive it is, it could be rather expensive, from $3,500 on to potential thousands, particularly based on the wealth or the worth of the state itself.
Okay.
And again, as I was saying before, a concubine can claim rights to someone's state. So that is also worth discussing. And
actually, that was my next question to you. Is there common law marriage in Mexico?
Yeah, I actually have an article on that, and it specifies and cites the law, actually. But yeah, concubine has the right to claim rights to someone's state, even if she was not ever the spouse. But a concubine has legal rights in Mexico, and they go parallel to the wife. How do things get interpreted and who gets what? That's up to the judge. It's not my field. I'm not an expert on family law. But yeah, a concubine there or here will have the right to claim, or the children of out of wedlock can claim rights to that state too. So,
I heard that if a foreigner is married to a Mexican and the Mexican dies and they had assets, that the family, either the kids or the parents, can come and make a claim on a percentage of those assets for the Mexican that died. Is that true or not?
It has happened. Yes, I've seen that, particularly those that are contested. I have cases in court here in Baja California where I have a trial attorney, more so a specialist in family law, in which a person that died in Mexico, a Mexican national with dual nationality, had married in the state, but he never actually divorced the spouse and married a Mexican in Mexico, okay? And then, yeah, people didn't know here because they're expecting you to be honorable and be single, right, in order to be married. So that marriage was legal, but eventually had a son, a daughter, born out of wedlock, of course. But now the children in the U.S. are filing for intestate in Mexico, and so is the widow, even though she was not legally the wife. Knowingly or unknowingly, I don't know, but there's a child that the deceased actually recognized and registered in Mexico as his daughter, and yeah, they all have rights to it. And what portion, the judge will determine who. And there's other complications because there's cases in which the spouse had received money from the now deceased to buy property. She registered the property under her name, but they were married in sociedad conyugal, which is community property, even if the name of the deceased doesn't appear. But since they never got a divorce, she cannot claim that to be hers because it's actually part of the state.
So is there community property? So if one person, if they're married and they're in Mexico and one of them dies, does the assets automatically transfer to the other one, or is it not? Does all of the assets for that marriage get automatically transferred if there's no will?
Well, there's a state, and even if there's a will, you have to go through probate regardless.
I have another question, and this is actually like a two-part question because it applies for unmarried and married people. For the unmarried people, for the concubines, do they have to be registered with the government to be able to claim anything? And for the married people that are married outside of Mexico, say, for example, somebody married in the U.S., does their marriage need to be registered here in Mexico in order for them to claim it?
It would be convenient, and this somehow it's related. It seemed related to divorces, where people were married in the U.S. They have a home in Mexico and they establish an address, a legal address in Mexico, in Baja California, and they've been here for over 2 years. And then there's conflict, and then they fall out of love, and one wants to divorce the other, or either consensual or not. They have to fight her, or they have to eventually agree that they have to register the marriage with the Registro Civil in Mexico in order for the court to recognize the validity and the existence of that bond, legal bond named marriage.
Thank you for watching our video. If you're planning on buying real estate in the Rosarito Beach area, make sure to give us a call. Have a great day, everybody.